Where are the receivers and left tackles? I tell you what the Patriots should and shouldn't do here on Patscast.
Where are the weapons? Where's the line? Offseason moves got me losing my mind. Cops got an eye on.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. You know, Monday was an exciting day. The Patriots really did aggressively approach free agency, bringing in players like Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Carlton Davis. Physical, tough, cultural guys, the type of guys you know Mike Vrabel wants to bring to the team. And we're all just waiting for the shoe to drop on the remaining needs that the Patriots have to fill out. But since Monday, it's basically been crickets. There's been a move here and there, but all the big moves happened on Monday. But we did get some news today about the wide receiver position, which is encouraging for the Patriots. Cooper Kupp has officially been released by the LA Rams. We know they were seeking a trade, seeing if they could get something for him. I know a lot of Patriots fans, myself included, floating out the idea, just throw a 7th-round pick at him, make sure you can lock up Cooper Kupp. And there at least you have a wide receiver number 2 who maybe is not what he was a couple of years ago, but a guy like Cooper Kupp working with Josh McDaniels is going to be highly productive in that offense and be a weapon that Drake May really hasn't had. Now the good news is there is some mutual interest there, it seems, between the Patriots and Cooper Kupp. Andrew Callahan of the Herald wrote the other day, according to a league source, Kupp is curious about the prospect playing in New England and has shared that curiosity with some close to him. Kupp has personal and professional connections to the Patriots, starting with ex-college teammate and fellow wideout Kendrick Bourne, who has repeatedly advocated for Kupp to come to New England on social media. The two remain friendly, sources say. That's good to hear. You know, I think Milton Williams seemed like a long shot, a reach for the Patriots, the best defensive player in the draft, according to most. And they still went out and got him. And we weren't hearing reports that Milton Williams really wants to come to the Patriots. In fact, we were hearing Milton Williams wanted to go to the Carolina Panthers. Well, we're hearing this about Cooper Kupp, that he is interested in the Patriots. And he's not going to cost them a lot. I don't think you have to spend $20+ million a year to get Cooper Kupp. I mean, it might be closer to 17, 18. You might need to throw some guarantees in there, but get him for a couple of seasons. You know, a $36 million contract, half of it guaranteed. I think Cooper Kupp would sign that. You know, a lot of people consider him washed. He was still highly productive last year, certainly productive when he went up against the Patriots, burned Jonathan Jones for like an 80-yard touchdown when the Patriots ran a safety blitz. I think you got to add him. I think this is a no-brainer. I think the Patriots might get this done. I am refreshing my X feed as I'm doing this podcast in case there's some breaking news. But as of right now, the Patriots have done basically nothing to address the wide receiver position. They did make one move, which I'll get to in just a second, which I think is underrated. But in terms of that big number 1 wide receiver, I'm not saying Cooper Kupp is that guy, but he's going to add talent that the Patriots really haven't had on that roster in quite some time. Elliott Wolf, get it done. But another guy who could be a number 1 wide receiver that I think the Patriots should consider trading for is Brandon Aiyuk. We all know the San Francisco 49ers are desperate to get that contract off the books. It is a big contract for a receiver like Aiyuk, but not a big contract for what the market's demanding these days, and not a big contract considering the Patriots have all this cap space that they still haven't used up. I said the other day, I think they have like $50 million left. I actually think the number is a lot greater than that. I haven't seen the official number of what the Patriots have left in cap space, but they can certainly afford to take on Brandon Aiyuk's contract if they're willing to make a trade. And as the Niners become increasingly desperate to move his contract, get it off the books, free up cap space so they can be a little bit more flexible, the value that they're going to need to make that trade is going to continue to go down. I don't think the Patriots have to trade anything more than a 3rd-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk, and that may fall down to a 4th or 5th-round pick at some point. And they shouldn't trade a 2nd-round pick. Like, that's a terrible idea. The Niners would take that deal in a second. I don't think any team is going to trade a 2nd-round pick, as great as Brandon Aiyuk is, for that contract. So, you know, the Patriots, I know they're valuing draft picks quite a bit because they have a lot of positions of need that they need to fill, but they took care of a lot of that in free agency. Stop valuing the draft picks so much. You have an extra 3rd. That's probably all it takes. Just throw it at the Niners, get Brandon Aiyuk in town, and then you have the potential to really build a great receiving core. Savage Boston Sports on X said the Patriots could have a receiving core when all said and done of Cooper Kupp, Brandon Aiyuk, Travis Hunter, and Mac Hollins, the receiver they just signed that I said I'll get to in just a second. That's a heck of a lineup there, and that excludes Demario Douglas, who would play into that and probably be your number 3 guy. It excludes Kendrick Bourne, who we know can be a productive contributor, is clearly recruiting Cooper Kupp, and who the hell knows what's going to happen with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk when all is said and done. Now, are the Patriots going to have all 3 of those guys on the roster week 1? Cooper Kupp, Brandon Aiyuk, Travis Hunter? I don't think so, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad, and I think 2 out of 3 is very realistic at this moment in time. And suddenly you go from having one of the worst receiving cores, if not the worst receiving core in the NFL, to, I think, arguably top 5, at least top 10. Cooper Kupp, Brandon Aiyuk, Travis Hunter, Mac Hollins, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, couple second-year players that you hope can develop. I would assume some of those guys would get cut. Kendrick Bourne is kind of the top of my list, if that were to happen, just because it would free up some cap space, and you still want to develop the young guys, and I don't think there's really as much room for them, but you have the chance to make these moves, and it's not going to cost you a lot. I would like to think Elliott Wolf is having those conversations right now, and hopefully can get a deal done for Kupp and potentially for Aiyuk. And if Travis Hunter falls to you at 4, like, the sky's the limit for this team, at least with the weapons that Drake May could potentially have in the second year of his career. Now, of course, he needs protection. I'll definitely get to that in just a second, and there's a lot more that needs to be done there. But a guy that the Patriots did add to their receiving core, the one addition, is Mac Hollins. And immediately when I heard about this, I said, he is your Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan type player. Josh McDaniels, he's not going to have 1,000 catches, but Josh McDaniels is going to find a way to use Mac Hollins. Been impressed with him from what I've seen on the field in recent years. That said, Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola is not the best comparison for Mac Hollins. Hogan was more of a speed guy. Amendola, short, slot, Edelman type guy. Hogan's a better comparison, but he is faster than Mac Hollins. That said, Hollins is more than capable of stretching the field. There's plenty of highlights. Look it up on YouTube or on X of Josh Allen throwing deep to him. He had a great catch in the AFC Championship game this year that brought the Buffalo Bills back in the game before halftime. Hell of a player, but like I said, not as fast as Chris Hogan, but can stretch the field like Chris Hogan. But he's 6'4". He's a physical, more of a red zone threat than we saw with sort of those mid-tier receivers in the late Tom Brady Belichick era in New England. I think Mac Hollins is going to bring something new that we really haven't seen here. And the better comparison to a former Patriots prototype, I think, is Brandon LaFell. Remember Brandon LaFell? Now, Hollins still has 2 more inches on LaFell. LaFell, though, was a big guy, 6'2", could be a strong boundary guy while not being a number 1 wide receiver. That said, LaFell in 2014, Brady's 4th Super Bowl, he had almost 1,000 yards that season. So, Josh McDaniels knows how to work with these types of guys. Boundary, big-bodied wide receivers that aren't necessarily A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, number 1 guys. And if they can't get an Aiyuk or an A.J. Brown or one of these dream receivers, T. Higgins, that we've been talking about for months, for years now, as Patriots fans, Mac Hollins can be that Brandon LaFell type player. And he's not going to have a 1,000-yard season, but 700-800 yards, not out of the realm of possibility, depending on where he is on that depth chart. And as of right now, he's probably wide receiver number 1. I don't know, number 1 or number 2. Is Kendrick Bourne number 1? Is Douglas number 1? I mean, Douglas is a slot guy, so it's kind of hard to pencil him as a number 1. But yeah, they got to make these moves, right? Kupp, Aiyuk, Travis Hunter, get 2 out of those 3 guys, and Drake May is going to be thrilled with the weapons that he has for year 2. Now, those weapons aren't going to mean anything until the Patriots get real protection in front of Drake May. But I think they got off to a pretty good start on Monday with the Morgan Moses signing. And there's been a ton of hate for Morgan Moses among Patriots fans. He's old. He's washed. He's going to get hurt. And that just does not support the narrative of this guy's career. Moses is quite literally, sorry, can't talk today. He is quite literally one of the most durable tackles to ever play the game of football. Basically hadn't missed any time until this past year. since his second season. And he missed some time this past year, just missed a few games, but was back out there. He's a really good player, an excellent pass blocker, decent at blocking, particularly on gap runs. Really great. There's a lot of highlights that Taylor Kyles on his X account pulled, but when you pull the tackle and you have to send him downfield, he can move quite well for an older fella out there. 34 years old, moves very well, and I gotta say that it's quite depressing hearing myself say that because he is my age at this point, and I realized just now that I have to give up my dream of becoming a star NFL right tackle. That said, I'm still holding out for the quarterback position, but 34 years old is not as old as a lot of people say it is in the NFL, especially with offensive linemen. There are plenty of great offensive linemen that continue to perform at a high level well into their late 30s, and if it was one player that, had getting hurt on and off, like say Tyron Smith, who I'm going to talk about in just a second, then that's one thing. That's a little bit of a concern, but Morgan Moses has not been that guy. He has the track record that just says, like, this guy can play until he's 38, 39 years old. And at the end of the day, he's just going to be a bridge guy, right? They are still developing Caden Wallace, who I still think has the potential to be a really good NFL tackle with the right structure, keeping him at the right tackle position. If Morgan Moses goes down, you have Caden Wallace there to fill in. Not to mention, I think the Patriots should probably consider drafting not just a left tackle, but prioritize the right tackle position maybe in the later rounds, because some of those right tackle guys do slip through because teams like to prioritize the left tackle position, which is more valuable. I think there may be some good right tackle guys on the board. And then you got some depth. You have Morgan Moses as a bridge starter, a more than competent guy who's going to take care of business on the right side next to Michael Wenu. You do that, and then you have Caden Wallace, who you hope can develop into your future right tackle, but then you draft another guy who you think could develop into your future right tackle. I think that makes a lot of sense. But Patriots have shored up the right side of the offensive line. Right guard, Owenu. Right tackle, Morgan Moses. You think David Andrews is going to be back at center. You have Cole Strange at that position if Andrews does decide to retire or if he gets cut, as we've heard in the rumor mill lately. I think the Patriots have lots of depth at the left guard position. If they have to choose between Cole Strange or Layden Robinson or Sidy So, you hope one of those guys would win out and be productive. They could draft someone there. But of course, there's left tackle, which is arguably the most important position on the field offensively outside of quarterback. And the Patriots still haven't done anything there, which means if the season started right now, Vidarian Lowe is once again your starting left tackle. And the guy that we've all been talking about that we hope the Patriots sign is Cam Robinson, who's most recently played for the Minnesota Vikings after being traded this past season. But it's been crickets on Robinson, who is allegedly the best remaining tackle available. And it's very possible he's trying to leverage teams to maximize his contracts. And I've been advocating, especially since Ronnie Stanley went back to Baltimore, I've been advocating for the Patriots to go after Cam Robinson as a bridge left tackle in the same way that Morgan Moses is at right tackle. But there are some major red flags that have surfaced about Cam Robinson over the last few days, starting with something Greg Bedard tweeted yesterday. He pointed out that statistically, Vidarian Lowe actually had a better season last year than Cam Robinson did. So let's compare the stats. Robinson had 1,073 snaps, 64 pressures, 8 sacks, 13 penalties, while Lowe had a lower snap count, 803 snaps, 30 pressures, 3 sacks, and 13 penalties. So I did a little bit of math. I'm not a mathematician, but I was able to crunch the numbers here. If Lowe had played the same number of snaps as Cam Robinson did this past season, what would that average out to based on his numbers? So again, 1,073 snaps. If Vidarian Lowe had played the same number, he would have allowed 38 pressures. Compare that to Cam Robinson's 64 pressures. He would have allowed 4 sacks, half as many as Cam Robinson's 8 sacks. The only category here where Cam Robinson would get the edge is in the penalty category, which we know Vidarian Lowe has not been great at over the years. On average, he would have had 17 penalties versus Cam Robinson's 13. So I don't think Cam Robinson is quite the fix that a lot of people think he is. And I'm not necessarily saying that Vidarian Lowe is a better tackle than Cam Robinson, but he might be a better tackle than Cam Robinson. Like, it just might be the truth. Lowe has had a constant turnover since he entered the league since he came to the Patriots at offensive coordinator and with his offensive line coach. Rotation every single year. There's a new guy there. Not to mention Cam Robinson, these numbers that he had, 10 of those games occurred in Kevin O'Connell's offense. If he can't perform in Kevin O'Connell's offense, and Vidarian Lowe has better numbers with Scott Peters as his offensive line coach and Alex Van Pelt as his offensive coordinator, and even the year before, Vidarian Lowe was definitely a lot worse the year before, but it was comparable to Cam Robinson's numbers last year. I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is the right move, and I don't know. And just as concerning, per Albert Breer, if New England were to sign Robinson, they would prefer it to be an incentive-laden deal with little guaranteed money. So that isn't the Patriots being cheap. They actually think Robinson needs the motivation with all sorts of incentives in his contract in order for him to play well. Now, this is nothing new in the NFL. You know, that there's a reason these incentives exist. One, it makes things cheaper for teams. But two, you want players to be motivated so they can go out there and perform. If he's getting a $15 to $20 million deal, which is what you know, Moore and some of these other tackles are going for, he may kick back, put his legs up, and just not do anything. And that is the opposite of what Mike Vrabel is trying to do. I mean, look at the culture moves that they made on Monday. Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, Harold Landry. These are tough, engaged leaders coming to the roster. And it doesn't sound like Cam Robinson is that guy. And he needs all sorts of incentives because there is worry there. He gets that big tackle contract that he's been hoping to get. Is he going to start regressing? I think that's a real concern. You're probably better off drafting and developing. Maybe you have to use that second round pick on a tackle, but they should be drafting someone they perceive as a future left tackle, regardless of if they get Cam Robinson or not. But there really are some real concerns there, and I'm not as bullish on the Patriots bringing in Robinson as I was 48 hours ago. But another option that they have, which I think is a much better alternative to Cam Robinson, is Tyron Smith. Yes, you would be bringing in another 34-year tackle, and you would also have literally the two Jets starting tackles last year as your starting tackles this year. And they weren't very good with Aaron Rodgers, but it wasn't so much the tackle positions why the Jets struggled last year, and that would still be a massive upgrade from DeMontre Jacobs and Vidarian Lowe, having Tyron Smith and Moses out there at right tackle. So, yeah, it would be a little weird having both of those guys out there, but I would gladly take Tyron Smith as a bridge at left tackle for another year while they develop the guy they ideally draft in the second round, if they do decide not to draft Will Campbell. But, you know, the issue with Tyron Smith, which isn't the issue with Morgan Moses, is he isn't very durable. He gets injured a lot. I don't think I think he did have one slight injury last year. It might have missed a little bit of time. I don't have it in front of me right now. He was relatively healthy last year compared to previous years, but I think you got to take that risk. And I do think Vidarian Lowe has showed that he is a capable, solid backup, which I wouldn't have said a year ago. Vidarian Lowe was much better than we expected. Still, arguably the worst starting left tackle in the NFL out there, but as a backup with Tyron Smith there, not ideal, but I would be comfortable with that heading into the next season. And there is this narrative that Tyron Smith wasn't very good with the Jets last year after being a real foundational piece at left tackle for the Dallas Cowboys for many, many years. But this is true to an extent because Tyron Smith was a great player in Dallas, but that doesn't mean he wouldn't be a massive upgrade compared to what we've seen in New England ever since they drafted Isaiah Wynn, to be honest. In 2024, Tyron Smith ranked 30 out of 141 tackles, according to Pro Football Focus. That puts him in the 79th percentile. So maybe he regresses with another year, 75th or 70th percentile. That is still a massive improvement. I will take mid. I will take 50th percentile. I will take slightly below mediocre at left tackle at this point. And if you can get a left tackle like Tyron Smith 13, 14 games, who's in the 70th percentile of tackles at that position, it's going to make a ton of difference for Drake May and that offense. And also Josh McDaniels is going to be able to coach around that a little better than we saw with Alex Van Pelt. Still draft a tackle, right? Ideally in the second or third round. Develop Wallace on the right side and maybe draft someone there too. But let Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith bring a coachable veteran presence to that offensive line. I think that's what the Patriots should do at this point. But let me know if you disagree. I'm curious to hear from you in the comments. Are you more in the Cam Robinson camp? Do you think they should just ride it out with Lowe and draft someone? Are you a Will Campbell guy? Let me know in the comments. Some other news. Minor signing, but the Patriots did bring in a quarterback, journeyman Josh Dobbs, to play behind Drake May. My instant reaction to this was that means Joe Milton is getting traded. But the more I think about it, the less I see that as a likelihood. I think Joe Milton is only getting traded if the Patriots are blown away with an offer. Now, some have floated out the idea of the Tennessee Titans swapping picks with the Patriots. The Patriots get the first overall pick, and the Titans get the fourth overall pick, and Joe Milton as their quarterback. That is not going to happen. That is a pipe dream. If the Patriots were to move up from number 4 to number 1, it's going to cost them a hell of a lot more than Joe Milton. They would probably need to trade a future first-round pick and maybe a mid-round pick this year to even have the Titans consider making a move like that. And why would the Patriots do that, right? So they could have their pick between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter? Well, one of those guys seems increasingly likely. One of those guys is going to be available at 4th overall. The betting odds say the Patriots are going to draft Travis Hunter right now. So I don't see any reason for them to make that move. And I don't see why the Titans, as much as they may love Joe Milton, played in Tennessee, he might be better than Sanders or Cam Ward. A lot of people think that. I still don't see them making that trade without the Patriots really giving a lot more in terms of compensation. But like I said, it could be very possible that some team could see Joe Milton as a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. But even then, Joe Milton was a 6th-round pick last year who played well against Buffalo's third stringers. You may be able to flip him for a 3rd-round pick at best, but I don't think you're getting more than a 4th or 5th-round pick, to be honest. So unless you're blown away, you get a 2nd-rounder or a 1st-rounder, or the Titans really want to give you the number 1 pick without any additional compensation, which again is a pipe dream, not going to happen. I think the Patriots should hold on to Joe Milton, understanding Drake May is a quarterback that often puts himself in harm's way. It's basically a coin flip whether or not he plays 17 games last year. You want a real legitimate backup there, and I don't think that's Josh Dobbs. I don't think Josh Dobbs is the backup. I think Joe Milton can beat him out. I think he ultimately will beat him out. And let's say we lose Drake May for a month, and Joe Milton goes in there, plays well, well, then you can flip him for a 1st-round pick next year and keep winning games this year because you have Joe Milton out there. And Joe Milton's great, right? He has all the same traits Drake May has, but better, right? He's faster. He has a stronger arm. Maybe he's not as good of a decision maker. Maybe he doesn't have the same instincts as Drake May, but there's some real continuity there. When you lose Drake May and you bring in Joe Milton, the offense shouldn't skip a beat. Now, the only concern I would have about Joe Milton, well, there's a few concerns. One is Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. Playbook's going to be a lot more complex. You would like to think Drake May could pick it up. Is the same thing going to happen with Joe Milton? You'd like to think he could. But if for some reason Joe Milton is not picking up the offense in the same way that Drake May is and Josh Dobbs bringing in a veteran is, then yeah, maybe you do want to move on from him and get the compensation while Joe Milton's name is still out there. The other concern is Joe Milton sees himself as the main character in life. From everything that I've heard, he thinks he's a QB1. We know he has an eccentric personality, a lot of confidence. He does the backflips, etc. Is that a culture fit for Mike Vrabel? Does Mike Vrabel really want Joe Milton lurking around saying, I should be the starting quarterback out there when this team is really trying to build around Drake May? I think that is another concern. But look, that happens. These are NFL players. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, they're often divas. And I think Joe Milton, I didn't really hear a lot last year about him being a cancer in the clubhouse, if you will. He seemed like a really good teammate. He worked hard. He picked up the offense, did a great job when his opportunity came. It's just going to come with the territory with quarterbacks like that. I absolutely think Joe Milton has a future in this league as a pretty decent starting quarterback, but because of that, I think it's worth keeping him on the roster, having him there for continuity's sake if Drake May goes down, and then you have Josh Dobbs as the emergency third backup quarterback. You know, Dobbs is a 30-year-old journeyman. He brings a veteran presence to the quarterback room like Jacoby Brissett did last year. That's all he is. That's why the Patriots brought him in. He's likely an emergency third-string quarterback unless, for some reason, it doesn't work out with Joe Milton and Josh McDaniels, or he's not a great culture fit with Mike Vrabel. But I just don't see that happening. I think the Patriots will keep him around. I think they probably should, and I'm excited. You know, there's nothing worse as an NFL fan than seeing your starting quarterback go down and then just knowing that your season went down the drain. Thankfully, with Tom Brady, that only happened once, and it never happened again, but it happens pretty much every year, every other year for most NFL teams because quarterbacks get hurt all the time, and Drake May is not Tom Brady, right? He's going to put himself in harm's way a lot more. To have Joe Milton come in there, you feel confident, you feel like this team can keep doing what they were doing, and we're not going to lose games because we lost Drake May. We may be a bit more limited with Joe Milton, but we're not necessarily going to lose the next game because we lost our starting quarterback. That's why you got to keep him on the team. He'll probably get an opportunity this year if Drake May goes down, and then use that to flip Joe Milton a year from now when there's plenty of other quarterback-needy teams that might be willing to trade a first or second round pick for him. I think that makes a lot of sense, but let me know if you disagree. Do you think Josh Dobbs is the backup of the future, or at least for a year? Or do you see a lot more in Joe Milton? Do you think they should trade Joe Milton? Do you think there's a lot more value in Joe Milton than what I'm anticipating? I'm curious to hear from you. But that's it for this episode of Pat's Cast. I'm going to refresh my X timeline one more time just to make sure the Patriots haven't signed Cooper Kupp. Doesn't look like they have. So, we'll be back whenever any breaking news comes out. You're not going to want to miss it. If you like this video and you're watching on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll be back very soon with more New England Patriots coverage.
Where are the weapons? Where's the line? Off-season moves got me losing my mind. Cops got an eye on Foxborough Knights. Trade for Aiyuk, man, that would be tight. Mac Hollins walking in, big frame, big fight. Chris Hogan vibes, now LaFell's alright. Morgan Moses taking all that heat, but he's a rock, he won't retreat. Pat's Cast rolling, breaking it down. Where's the left tackle? Who's holding it down? Cam Robinson or Tyron Smith? Need a real blocker, no myth. Vidarian low stats say he might be legit. Better than Robinson, do the math, that's it. Milton still here, Dobbs in the mix. Trade rumors fly, but they ain't that slick. If May goes down, who's running the show? Milton got talent, but will he go? Vrabel's culture, discipline tight. No backflips, just play it right. Pat's Cast rolling, breaking it down. Where's the left tackle? Who's holding it down? Cam Robinson or Tyron Smith? Need a real blocker, no myth. Draft and develop, that's the play. Tough O-line to lead the way. Moses Smith, they bring the heat. Build this squad, make a